allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening to everybody. Welcome to Budget Workshop number 4. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Romanelli.
All right, thank you, Mr. Antonello, and welcome everyone this evening to our 4th budget workshop. Okay. That's okay. Thank you. Miss Pilati was hiding the clicker on me. All good. So just to start off the presentation for this evening, we have a few slides just to talk about what we've spoken about in our first few budget workshops this year. And just starting off with really what's in the budget and what's been included in our first couple of workshops. Number 1, the first bullet talks about Universal Pre-K program. We have 250 students that the district is funded pre-K for. We have 40 students in each of our home elementary schools, so equaling 160 students, and we have 90 students that will attend at South Shore Children's Center over at Westbrook. One of the big highlights there is that our district does fund pre-K for any students not getting into their home building for their pre-K program. So we do pay for the students that attend at South Shore, which is a big plus for the district, and we're committed to funding that in this year's budget. Also, just increased program opportunities. We previously put a cap on some of our BOCES programs. This budget includes additional opportunities and offerings for programs for students that would like to enroll in BOCES. We've also included an assistant director of special education at the secondary level. We currently have 1 assistant director of special education, and we're looking to expand to have 1 assistant director at the elementary level and 1 at the secondary level, which we think will be really beneficial for our students with special needs. We also we're looking to add 4 building aides at the elementary level and 2 additional preferred subs at the high school. The goal with the 2 additional preferred subs at the high school is to have continuity of instruction. We know that when we have teachers out of the classroom, we want to have substitutes in the classroom and be able to continue with what's going on in terms of instruction. We're also able to look at reallocating some staff to have math coaches at each of our middle schools, 1 at Beach Street Middle School and 1 at Udall Road Middle School, which we are excited about. That'll be just some additional support for our students and work with staff to support our students in the area of mathematics. We've also taken a look at adding a dean or deans of discipline at the high school. This is again a reallocation of our current teaching staff to focus on having a dean of discipline at the high school. Helps us to have some really proactive relationships with students and staff and our dean, and really build those up to when things do escalate, have to go to our assistant principal and principal, we have kind of a foundational piece there that the dean has already established. We've also added in a 6th grade integrated co-teaching section at Beach Street Middle School. Currently, when our students go through our elementary ICT program, all of our students are going into Udall Road Middle School. The idea here is that students can attend their home middle school after graduating from 5th grade in the ICT program. We do, we'll obviously look at CSE recommendations here in this, but we do have money in the budget allocated so that we can have an ICT section at Udall Road Middle School in 6th grade and also at Beach Street Middle School so students can attend their home buildings. We've also looked to add in some additional Chromebooks in 1st grade. We've traditionally had iPads, but have been hearing just instructionally that Chromebooks may be more beneficial for our students, from our staff, and from our students in that area, so we've included that in the budget as well. And just to talk a little bit about our average class sizes in elementary, you can see that the class sizes are very manageable here as we go through kindergarten through 5th grade. We've actually added some sections in when we were at a higher number to make sure that our class sizes are at a reasonable rate here. So we're actually up 1 section overall at Manitowoc, and we're going to be adding a section at Udall Road Middle School as well in 6th grade. We had some class sizes pretty high, about 28, 29 students, 27 students in the 6th grade. And so by adding a section there at Udall Road, we're able to have that more in the lower 20s in those numbers there. So we're able to put those in place and have these projected average class sizes for the budget for this year. And with that, I'm going to turn over the next slide to Mrs. Pilati to talk about the 23-24 proposed New York State budget.
Good evening, everyone. So our state budget should have been released by April 1st. However, several budget extenders have been passed to allow for more time for an agreement to be reached. Since districts must adopt their budgets and submit the property tax report card to New York State, most districts, if not all, are using the estimated state aid figures that were provided back in February. While the lack of a finalized state budget does create some uncertainty, traditional state aid has not been a controversial part of these negotiations, because the governor, the Senate, and the Assembly have all proposed a state aid package that includes full funding of foundation aid and full funding of expense-based aids. So overall, the executive budget proposal from back in February will increase school aid by $3.1 billion, or 9.97% over the current levels. The aid increase includes a $2.7 billion increase in foundation aid and $332 million in expense-based and other categorical aids. The executive budget proposal continues with that final year of the 3-year foundation aid phase-in. That plan provides districts who are below full funding for foundation aid with an increase that will be equal to the 100% of their remaining phase-in amount. While other districts who are already fully funded will receive a minimum 3% increase. West Islip is projected to receive an increase of only 3.29% in state aid because we are one of those districts that's fully funded in foundation aid. So we will not be one of those districts receiving tens of millions of dollars in state aid. We'll just receive the minimum 3% increase in foundation aid. There are 3 main sources of revenue for a school district. Property taxes being the primary source of local revenue. The amount of taxes that we can levy are subject to a tax cap. State aid is a second major source of revenue for districts, and it's either formula-driven, such as foundation aid, or expense-driven, such as a BOCES aid or a transportation aid. Other local revenues are the third source of revenue, and things that are included in this category are things such as interest, a pilot payment, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. We also have just one pilot in our district, which is a veterinary office on Sunrise Highway. We also have non-resident tuition in that group, things like that. West Islip's funding profile consists of approximately 69% of property taxes, almost 27% comes from state aid, 2.9% is in that other revenue category, and just 1.6% is made up of fund balance. Since the tax cap was enacted back in 2012, the budget formula looks like this. You start off with the restricted tax levy, then you have to add in any state aid that you expect to receive, as well as any other revenue that the district expects to earn, any amount that you will use as appropriated fund balance, and any amount you will be appropriating from any of the district's reserves. And the sum of all that is essentially what the district's expenditure budget can be. So the first part of that formula is the restricted tax levy. And just as a summary, we had gone over that in the first budget workshop. The district's tax levy for 2023-24 is the $92 million you see there, or an increase of 1.87% over the current year level. This is actually a relatively low increase in the tax levy, considering the average on the island is 2.21%, and Suffolk County is seeing an average of 2.36%. In order to calculate the actual tax rate for next year, you need 3 different numbers. You need your tax levy, the final assessment values, and your homestead percentages. A school district only provides one of those numbers, which is the tax levy, which we know is the $92 million for next year. The final assessment value and the homestead percentages both come from the town of Islip, which isn't provided to us until October of 2023. However, in order to provide an estimated average increase, we use an average assessed home in West Islip, which is $45,000, and we simply use the current 2022-23 assessed values and percentages with the known number of the tax levy of $92 million. So using those figures, an estimated average tax increase for next year is $184.50. That's an increase per month of about $15.38. We also provide instruction on how to calculate your own taxes in the district's budget newsletter that's mailed out to all of our residents. So that second part of the formula was the state aid. And here's a summary of our state aid. This is comparing what was budgeted in 2022-23 to what we are budgeting in 2023-24. As you can see, we have a 3.29% increase overall. And as I had mentioned, we are a district that is fully funded in foundation aid, which is why you only see a 3% flat increase there, the $758,000. Our other revenue category is made up of several items, as you see here. Other student fees stands out. That's increasing by $41,000, and that's primarily attributable to the fact that we are finally able to provide driver's ed instruction again, so parents no longer have to provide that in-person instruction for us. So we have resumed our normal driver's ed classes, and that revenue reflects that. The tuition revenue from other districts is expected to decrease by approximately $105,000. Health services revenue is also expected to decrease by approximately $100,000, which is just related to the enrollment of students in St. John the Baptist and the Bridges Academy. Rental income is projected to decrease about $166,000 for next year, which is strictly based off of our leases with our current tenants. Interest income is projected to increase based on our current interest rates. And other miscellaneous income is projected to increase by about $40,000. And this is made up of summer rec program revenue, premiums on our TAN borrowings, that's a tax anticipation notice, CPSE reimbursements, and miscellaneous refunds of prior year expenses. Overall, you can see we're looking at an increase of other revenue of 7.69%. One of those other categories in the budget formula were the reserves. Our district has several reserve funds. Reserves are basically a way for a district to save money and establish a way to legally save money for future projects and equipment purchases and other requirements. They basically provide financial stability for districts because they reduce the reliance on debt. And they also provide a district with a budgetary option in times where you might have a budget gap, and instead of cutting programs or services or raising taxes, you can rely on those reserves as an appropriation. So you're using that as a revenue source, which is what we're also doing this year. So this is a list of our reserves, the first being the Employee Benefit Accrued Liability Reserve, or we like to refer to as EBLR. It's essentially used for the payment of accrued unused days upon someone's retirement. The Retirement Contribution Reserve is used for the payment of retirement contributions to the New York State Employee Retirement System, or ERS. And the TRS subfund is used for the payment of retirement contributions to the TRS system. Workers' Compensation Reserve is used for the payment of compensation and benefits, medical and hospital bills, and other expenses authorized by the Workers' Compensation Law. The Unemployment Reserve is used to reimburse state unemployment insurance funds for payments made to claimants. And we also have two capital reserves, which are used for the cost of any capital projects or large equipment purchases. We actually have a district reserve plan, which is located on the business page of our website, and it is updated twice a year. And as you may recall, back in January, the district passed a capital reserve proposition to use both of our capital reserve funds for the purchase of air conditioning in all of our district schools, which will take place during the 23-24 school year. Essentially during July and August, so it will be in place by September. So we are looking to use some of those reserve funds, as I mentioned. That's when you use a reserve fund, you take from the reserve and you appropriate from it, and you use it as a revenue source to help fund your budget. So for the 23-24 year, we are looking to use $1.3 million in reserves. $350,000 will be appropriated from the EBLR reserve, $400,000 will be appropriated from the TRS reserve, $400,000 will be appropriated from the ERS reserve, and $200,000 will come from the Workers' Compensation Reserve. Okay. So this is just a summary of the budget formula for the 23-24 school year. It's essentially a summary of all the components we went through. And as you can see, our restricted tax levy is increasing to 1.87%. And budget to budget, our expenditure budget, is going up 3.05%. And of course, you can see here also, we are appropriating more from reserves. The good thing about that is if for some reason something happens where, as you recall from our first budget workshop, health insurance rates, those are unknown for the last 6 months of the fiscal year. If they come in lower than projected, let's say, and we have a savings there, we don't have to necessarily appropriate the entire 1.3 million from the reserves. So tonight was the last of our budget workshops, and we will be adopting the budget tomorrow here in the Beach Street Auditorium. It actually changed to 7:30 because it's in line with the Board of Education meeting. Our public budget hearing will take place here at 7 p.m. on May 9th, and on May 16th is our budget vote and trustee election at the high school gymnasium from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. We will have 3 board trustee seats open as well. 2 seats will be for a 3-year term, and 1 seat will be for the remaining 2 years of Mr. Compitello's term. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Ms. Bly, if you don't mind if I just add in just at the end here, just want to commend Ms. Bly on the work of the development of the budget for this year. When you look at an allowable tax levy of 1.87%, and then you think about the inflation rate that we have right now, about 8%, there's a big gap there when we look at our budget. And when we went to develop our budget this year and put everything in place, we had over a $3 million shortfall from where we wanted to be. Many districts on Long Island, to make up for that difference between the allowable tax levy and the inflation rate, became fully funded in foundation aid. And it kind of made up for that for them. Pretty simple budget year. I sat in some superintendent meetings where some superintendents were talking about the district. They didn't know how to spend all the money that they were getting. And others said, we have no idea how we're going to close that gap between the tax levy and the inflation rate. So we are one of the districts that was fully funded in foundation aid already, and really needed to look at how to, bridge that gap there. That was really done with a lot of effort and work of going through every, code line by line in the budget, and it was done so not only just with maintaining the programs that we have, but really expanding on the programs that we have. And I'm just really proud of the work that was done on the budget. So thank you for all your efforts there.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Maureen? Okay, that concludes budget workshop number 4. Thanks for coming.